All right. In today's digital landscape, the ability to securely and efficiently transfer and tokenize real-world assets is more crucial than ever before. And the integration of blockchain technology into the traditional finance and creative markets offers unprecedented opportunities for liquidity, ownership, and innovation. And with a focus on transparency, efficiency, and security, this new era of digital transactions is actually transforming how we engage with assets and financial products. This broadcast is going to be across multiple platforms and available for replay. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave your comments, even if it's later. We're going to be looking at them. Today, I'm here with Intrana, who's at the forefront of this transformation. They have their INT token, which is going to be live on Constellation's network. And it's going to facilitate transactions with the Intrana platform. And it supports their secure asset transfer protocol, SATP. And this is going to ensure seamless and secure asset transfers. So join us as we explore how Intrana is revolutionizing the digital asset landscape. And here with me is the co-founder and CEO, Cortland Welty. And thanks for being here.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it. Always nice to chat with you in the mornings, have a little cup of coffee, and talk about digital assets. Very exciting.
So I guess to start off with, so the other day I was actually talking about, tokenizing the whole global GDP. Last year the global GDP was set at something like $105 trillion, which is wild. In the United States alone, it was around close to $27 trillion. And small to medium-sized businesses actually make up the lion's share of this, like 70%. So if we're looking at just the US alone, we're talking about almost $18 trillion that's just being contributed by small to medium-sized businesses. So can you explain the core vision behind Intrana and how it aims to revolutionize digital assets?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we first started, we kind of wanted to make sure that the technology was accessible to everybody. That's kind of the whole ethos of what cryptocurrency initially was created to be. And we saw that there was a tremendous need for the application of this technology in an efficient way. There's so many ways that we can apply the technology. Immutable ledgers are very powerful. Instantaneous transaction and finality of data it is something that we haven't had before. And now that we have it, implementing that responsibly into businesses for them to use that tech in ways that they're already using other technology, kind of just a replacement, a swap, allows for businesses to kind of grow up and kind of compete at that national or global level that they were otherwise restricted to. And that's really what we're all about, providing that modular solution, not just to the consumer, but to businesses of all sizes. A focus on smaller businesses is something that we really kind of have a soft spot for, because there's a lot of businesses that can't afford to go and hire, let's say, their own development team for $100,000, $200,000 to make some custom solutions for them to use this new tech. But Constellation, their Metagraph solutions are so wonderful in terms of being able to respect all the primitive data and us having kind of a perfect place to house all of the activities, even though we're chain agnostic, in a way that allows us to do the efficient action for these companies, which is provide them something that most other companies like them are going to use and that they're going to need, and something that is turnkey. A modular solution that's easy to use, seamless, but also provides the efficiencies that they're looking for without the complexities that a lot of people normally associate with adopting new technologies. And from that, we've been very fortunate to work with a lot of good partners. Working with Quant, they're not necessarily a partner, they're more of a collaborator, but they really helped build the architecture. Their senior leadership team with myself. And through that, we really kind of planned to be able to touch every single traditional financial institution, brokerage, traditional database of any type, really, due to the adoption of the messaging standard ISO 222. And so from that, we're able to send respectable data and receive it from these major institutions due to the upgrades that have been mandated for their back-end infrastructure. So for the very first time in a very long time, I guess, businesses kind of have that final kind of restart for the race when it comes to technology and being competitive. And that's what Intrana is all about for people or for businesses, just trying to make sure that we can lift up as many as we can and level that playing field.
And can you get into a little bit about how your platform specifically is leveraging Quant's tooling and why that's important to these small and medium-sized businesses?
Yes. So Quant, obviously, their team has made a lot of wonderful things. Martin has patents still in ACH technology. Gilbert has done so much you probably couldn't fit it on 5 pages. And then Claire and the rest of them, they have contributed already prior to them working in this distributed ledger technology field in the fields of cryptography and cybersecurity in ways that everyone in the world has used their technology in some way or another. And they kind of have done it again. I hate to say it, but they've done it again. And it's beautiful to see, but also at the same time, they're so talented that of course we have to use quant technology. Their chain agnostic solutions that they provide. I didn't have to build all these bridges. I had to build some of them. I had to build quite a few of them myself, but they have bridges to a dozen plus mainnets, and they allow me access to that. Those gateways that we have access to, gateway, I should say, on Quant, really kind of allow us to connect different jurisdictions. The regulated liability network over in Europe, especially due to the new MICA regulations, is going to be kind of the way forward. And Quant is helping build that, I believe, with R3 and some other companies. But through that, they also have Enbridge. Not many people know about that, but having instantaneous access to national treasuries, almost every single financial institution, all on kind of that one bridging platform, is very powerful. Now that's concentrated mainly in Europe. They do have the lit chain activity that's going on, but having the ability to connect America and the rest of the world to that, and vice versa, really opens up more opportunities for borderless engagement. And through that, we start to see some of the cool financial interactions that didn't exist before due to us needing to arbitrage certain types of opportunities or having escrow set up on the side. Working with Quant, being able to use their tech is something that is allowing us to take the steps forward that we need. They're one of the building blocks. Constellation is also one of the key building blocks. And without these pieces of technology, our mission, what we're trying to do, wouldn't work. Not every business, not every consumer, not every government is going to agree that this blockchain is the best. They're just not. And that's okay. That's the spice of life. And that variety is going to be something that does help decentralize our data, as well as allow people to, kind of engage where they want. But through that same kind of funnel, it's going to allow all of those ecosystems to work together regardless of personal preference or industry preference or choice, and use the things that are wonderful about each chain in juxtaposition as opposed to in opposition. Because right now everybody's competing, but there's no need. There's so many wonderful things that all these companies have built. Really all they needed was a singular place for everybody to be able to go and use it without them being forced to adopt X, Y, or Z technology. And Quant is really kind of that starting point of us being able to do that. We obviously had to make some changes to some of the things that we were doing in order to incorporate Constellation, let's say, because I had to make that bridge. But it was the best foundation for our mission. And we couldn't have been luckier to kind of really stumble into that opportunity.
And, that's actually like a perfect segue to maybe discuss a little bit, because, you mentioned the European regulations, and you also mentioned the Treasury Department. So you're spearheading, if I'm not mistaken, like the financial product tokenization working group within the National DigiFoundry. So this is on your website, talking about the financial product tokenization work group. And then actually, if you if you head over to National DigiFoundry's website, there's a bit more information about the financial product tokenization work group, and everybody can clearly see here, this is not a Bitcoin address, it's not an Ethereum address, it's not even a Solana address, but it's a DAG address.
Yep.
So maybe you can talk a little bit about like what that working group is hoping to achieve, and who all is in that working group that you're working directly with.
Yeah, that working group is something that we kind of also stumbled into. We were lucky enough to win the work group competition for the NDF, and we are spearheading, as you said, the financial product tokenization work group. The main point and purpose of it is to have the engine ready, as well as analysis of testing for a tokenization engine that allows for traditional assets of all types, as well as the US dollar, to be put on chain in a way that is not only agnostic but secure and efficient, local to Constellation initially. And that is a very important kind of transition that I think that our country is kind of taking, not necessarily for granted, but our cybersecurity could never have been more fragile than it is now, especially nationally. And inside of the DigiFoundry, there's all sorts of different ways that we're creating technology or applying technology that's already been created in ways that are just creative or more secure, or allow for more efficient transaction types, right? So I know that Diggles, his work group, is doing great things. They were the secure information sharing work group, and then we also have 5 others, I believe, that are really just doing some cool stuff, things at the border, being able to track folks that come in, different types of applications inside of health and sciences, and then some of them work together. Because the secure information working group, I can't say everything that they've done, but they work with the International Space Station, and that International Space Station has all this data that they need to bring from space, petabytes of data. And then they need to find a place that they can analyze that data. And I believe, and quite a few people believe, and it's being tested, that Constellation is kind of that perfect place to allow that tokenized access to, let's say, machine learning models or AIs, so that, or other institutions, so that we have, a very efficient access, token gated, to institutions or entities that deserve access and need it. But also while protecting that data, because it's very valuable. A lot of the experiments that we're doing in space have to do, publicly, what I can say, like tissue regeneration, different types of, anti-cellular degeneration. There's all sorts of really neat things that are applicable towards the humanities in the long-term time horizon, and making sure that our lives are better. So our work group specifically is just trying to make sure that when we do finally adopt this technology in mass, distributed ledger technology is here to stay, blockchain is here to stay. When we do finally start to institute all of these pieces of technology and all of these concepts into our government, into trillion-dollar organizations, different types of enterprise activity that has 100 trillion plus in economic activity per year, it's all going to have to be done in a very efficient and standardized way. And it's going to have to be, tested. It's going to have to be fluent. It can't be something that isn't liquid. We're going to have concrete steps that are able to achieve the goals that we want for this, but also we will have to be able to pivot because new technology is coming out all the time, and kind of riding that edge is it's a fine balance. And I think that we've done a great job here at the NDF. Everybody that's been involved, we've had quite a bit of help. IBM is giving us some wonderful support in terms of cloud support. They're also doing that for the hackathon. That was amazing to see.
Yeah.
Giving that out to everybody. But they really have shown not just an interest in supporting people that are trying to create technology, not just for good, but for the betterment of our country in a responsible manner. But they've acted upon, those feelings and those beliefs, and they really have gone out of their way to make sure that we're supported, and anybody else that needed to be was. And soon, people will be able to go and use the US dollar on chain, and it won't be a stable coin, because I don't believe in stable coins. They're inherently unstable. I think that it's a very important part of the journey of blockchain for us to finally get away from this represents. It just is. When you look at your phone and you see that digital dollar in your bank account, you don't say, oh, well, this is the token that represents my digital dollar. You just say, oh, I have this many dollars in my bank account. It's just more about the proper licensing, as well as the insurance, the bonds that are associated with that, and then the record keeping and reporting requirements. And when you have those, you can really actually start to express the dollar without calling it a stable coin. And because it will be very different. Once we have that base unit of value expression for all of these assets that we're tokenizing, from securities, digital bills of lading, letters of credit, bonds, real estate, collectibles, any sort of commodity you can imagine. Once we have that, we can actually start to value and have valuation mechanisms and oracles for these assets in a chain agnostic manner that removes arbitrage opportunity entirely. But there'd be a little bit because of gas inefficiencies and the variable metric there, but we won't need to have some sort of like arbitrage for pairing across chains, because it'll just be respected as that value. And you won't have to worry about, do we have the money sitting off to the side? Like, it's going to be owned by the NDF, by trust. It's not us. We're helping run it. We're helping administer the system. We created the protocol, but it's not for our profit. It is a not-for-profit system that is here to allow people to transfer their wealth onto something that is way more secure than what the banks have, and the advisories have, and the insurance companies, and anything else. And when you start to do that, it just does provide a lot of benefits. And I'm very excited to show what those benefits are, and to see the ramifications of that transition inside of our global economy and here in the United States economy as well.
Yeah, and I think the broader crypto community, has lots of fears about CBDCs. I don't think we're going to be quite there yet, because it's a pretty touchy subject. I personally believe that the United States will pass a stablecoin bill probably this year, but like in the Bahamas, I think they were the first country in the world to issue and implement stablecoins with their sand dollar. I think if you had a completely open, transparent, and decentralized process for these CBDCs, they could be implemented and used. It's just like, how do we get there? And on the screen, these are some of the key players that you were discussing that are involved in the National DigiFoundry. We have IBM, Microsoft, there's the International Space Station, NASA, Department of Homeland Security, Space Force, National Science Foundation, and the U.S. Treasury Department. And yeah, as you mentioned, IBM is sponsoring or partnering, if you will, this hackathon that's coming up. And that's pretty exciting, being able for these builders to utilize their cloud infrastructure. IBM's a global leader in this hybrid cloud technology. So that's a pretty big deal. Also, Stardust is funding half of this hackathon, which is pretty exciting. And outside of just the hackathon, Stardust actually gives grants, which Intrana was a recipient of one of those grants. Maybe could you share like what you guys are specifically doing with that grant?
Yes. First and foremost, so thankful for everybody that's in Stardust. If you're watching this, thank you very much. We appreciate it wholeheartedly, and we're working our asses off. That being said, what's being done with the money? Licensing and marketing. So we have the advisory, the brokerage, Intrana Bank. All of that requires surety bonds, licensing of my team. Obviously, I have my licenses, but in order, let's say, to have someone be a principal at a brokerage or somebody at the head of an advisory firm, there's going to be certain things that my team will need. And then also the marketing will help. Surety bonds obviously are going to be something that is absolutely necessary. It's dictated inside of different types of registrations. And so we can't just have somebody with like a 910 and then a Series 7 and a 65, 66, 63 and SIE. Like that's not the way it works. So we are looking to, kind of bring in some additional expertise, have some folks that I know that are like CFA level 3s, be able to really help out, make sure that we have some good quantitative analysis built in to the platform itself, just so that we can provide some of the more advanced traditional financial metrics and analytics that these folks are going to be looking for. Because we anticipate, due to the efficiency, quite a few family offices, hedge funds, et cetera, being interested very quickly. So we do want them to have the tools that they need, as well as the assurances that are associated with that. And that's where all the money's going, making sure that those assurances are set up, the tools are available, and that we are rigorously tested to make sure that, nothing can happen. Because when it comes to security, it's kind of the most important thing. If we're going to be holding on to anybody's data, and if we're going to allow anybody else to hold on to their own data, it has to be done correctly. It's paramount, because this isn't a situation where, we made a mistake, we're going to go and roll back this or whatever. Once those securities, commodities, once we have trillions on chain tokenized, and it all isn't on an immutable ledger, it does open up that extra risk factor of it's immutable. You can't go and immediately retrieve it back. So just making sure that these things are properly instilled early is a great use of the funds we saw. And again, thank you, Stardust. You guys are the best.
And on that same vein there with the token, maybe you could walk us through the process of everybody, like right now, like how users can purchase INT tokens, and and what specifically they're going to be used for on the Intrana platform.
Yeah, sorry, you can't buy them right now. We had our ICO, it was for half a year. If you missed it, very sorry that you're just finding out about it now. But we will make sure that people do have access in the secondary. The way that this is going to work, we've taken a lot of notes from some very good companies that have been successful, and have also really given like kind of a good example of how to do it. Alchemy was a great one. Constellation has some good tokenomics. Quant has some really good ideas inside of the way that they built their tokenomics. The way that we wanted ours to work is we wanted it to kind of be that central focus of the platform, kind of the lifeblood of it. The platform doesn't work without it. And in that way, it's more of just platform credits to an extent. It allows you to do X, Y, Z on our platform, from tokenization to transfer to the chain agnostic bridging. Now, some people are like, why is that necessary? Most of the time, on most chains, you don't need a token. There are all these platforms, all these companies that are like, oh, buy my token, but they're local to one chain, which means there's no need for them to have a token, because there's already a token on the chain. They're creating extra steps for no reason so they can make money. The reason that we have a token is that we have to make sure that we have a unified way to pay for the gas fees across every single chain. And if we have a multi-chain transaction flow, it's very important for that multi-chain transaction flow to be paid not by requesting 5 different types of assets at the same time from a wallet. Especially if someone's just trying to move something from Ethereum over to AVAX or something, or the seller and the buyer are in different locations. So it's kind of something that we wanted to make sure the token represented that, but also represented the utility that would be associated with the network as well as some of the additional functionalities. So that being said, that's all the consumer activity that, let's say, will use INT. But our business licenses, there's a business that wants to use our modular solutions. They come, they have an X amount of INT, they can pay in fiat. And even if people choose to pay in fiat for any of the actions on the platform, that fiat is used to buy the INT. It's directly, immediately converted so that we can pay for everything that's happening and contribute to the liquidity pool. And in that way, all the activity of the platform and in turn the revenue is put through that liquidity pool for the transference to make sure that all that activity can happen in terms of the bridging and the gas fees are paid for before we ever touch it. So it kind of prioritizes operation of the platform, and it makes it to where when people come and they want to actually buy INT from us, we have the option to charge a premium, which we will be, because we want to prioritize as our second priority the community. You know, that secondary market is very important, and obviously there's going to be, in our opinion, an increasing demand for the token because they will need business licenses to use our modular solutions. We will see these folks not come to us because it's going to be a markup at current value. So if for their compliance reasons they need to buy in fiat, they can come to us and they can buy in fiat, and we'll charge them a premium for it. But we're going to try to push them as much as we can towards that secondary market so that there is not necessarily guaranteed, but encouraged secondary activity and volume for the holders, so that there is liquidity, so that there are people that are coming in and out due to businesses needing to use it. And in the same vein that, let's say, Quant is locking up their funds for the business licenses, we lock up those funds, and if they don't redeem, that INT is burned. So we have kind of a built-in deflationary mechanism for that, that incentivizes businesses with a slight discount the more that they redeem, but does get rid of that value if they choose not to keep going. And then we can either take that back, we can burn it, the community can decide. And you know, that 15% that we have allocated towards different projects, 5% is for the chupacabras. Those validators will have those rewards over time. So we are also incentivizing engagement with our network and rewarding the additional decentralization and security that people are providing. When we introduce that next little asset class, the Fruitions, you know, it's just going to be a collectible, right? But it is going to represent the right and give people the right to create validators on their mobile devices. And when they do that, we'll be able to ping all the mobile devices, not just for decentralized storage use, but also for decentralized compute in a much cheaper way. So some of our modular business solutions that we are receiving revenue from, we can directly share with the people who are actually helping with the compute itself by contributing even a small amount of let's say, their iPhone's processor or some Snapdragon on an Android, right? And it doesn't seem like much, but that residual reward over time can actually end up, you know, being something if liquidity pools grow. And it is a way for us to decentralize the network, and in a way create mesh networks that otherwise would not be possible in different locales, especially like high populous jurisdictions. So I know that's a mouthful. That's a lot about INT, but we have big plans, and INT is kind of the focal point for everything that we're doing. It's not something that we made off to the side to generate revenue. Like, it is literally needed to run our platform. And if you don't have it, you won't be able to engage with our platform.
Yeah. And, you know, it's that mining cost that I think I reposted and left a comment under Cointelegraph, you know, talking, you know, kind of about that, you know, that the U.S. Treasury is trying to change some things with respect to mining and, you know, the overall cost of it. You know, proof of work is not exactly the most energy efficient resource.
No, no.
So yeah, I mean, and that's one of the great things about Constellation's Metagraphs is the computational cost to access this platform is super minimal. I think that you could run a couple of nodes, essentially your entire infrastructure. So for those who don't know, Constellation's tooling, it's a distributed ledger technology kit, and it allows people to build layer one networks on top of their hypergraph. And the way that it operates is for a network, a layer one network on top of that, metagraphs, to achieve full consensus, you need 3 nodes. And I believe 3 nodes is the same energy cost as a light bulb, which is pretty remarkable.
Yeah, like let's say like setting up the storage for it, the cloud costs slightly more, right? But you can run it locally if you want. It's not encouraged. I don't encourage anybody to run a local validator. That's a recipe for disaster. But yeah, it's so much cheaper, right? And when you look at, even Ethereum or Bitcoin, I know people that are setting up to flare networks, like literally like oil that's caught on fire shooting out of the ground in Texas, so that they can get a thermodynamic converter and power Bitcoin miners because it needs that much energy. I think there was a guy that said if we transferred everything currently that we were doing in terms of validation and tried to put it on the Bitcoin network, we would use more energy in like a week than the United States uses in a year. So it's not realistic. Like it's a cool concept, but it doesn't really make sense in the long term. And Constellation, not just their Euclid development environment that they have for developers, which is a dream, by the way. I'll put that out there. Their scripting is amazing. But their actual validation setup, the way they have it, it's brilliant. The lattice-based encryption, the tessellation that they're using is something that, of course the government is using it. It's a work of art. And honestly, they really did reinvent the wheel and it works, which is even crazier. So if anybody hasn't seen that, I highly encourage you to go and look at what the network can do. The ways to set up the validators, the different layers inside of the validators, and the way that the container structuring works, because they did update that. So having like the Metagraph layer 0 and the currency layer and the data layer kind of all working together. And then there's some neat things that, like, technically there is a mutable data store on a Metagraph that most people don't know about towards that final in cycle of validation. And there's like just a small little mutable data store that you can like cache things in. It's just, there's so many neat things that you can do that a lot of people haven't really thought about. And it's because the technology is honestly very complicated. But yeah, it's also very cheap to run. And I can't imagine, let's say, in emergency scenarios or just ultimate efficiency and optimization scenarios for any other technology to be used. Because Constellation really does everything that other chains want to do, but much cheaper, more efficiently, and more securely.
Yeah, and if you actually head to their website, which I'm on right now, where it talks about the network fees, and it gives an example here of something like 54 million transactions a month, which sounds kind of crazy. But when you actually think about some of the stuff that they're doing with the government specifically, which I've talked about and posted graphics several times, in 2019, when they first started development and working with US Transcom, US Transcom alone was sending something like 2 terabytes of data every 60 seconds. Which, like, it's kind of hard to like wrap your mind around how much data that is. Like every 60 seconds, 2 terabytes of information is being sent out. And so really that this sort of like comical scenario that they pointed out of 54 million transactions happening a month actually isn't that outlandish.
Might be
And
low.
yeah, it might, exactly. It might be low for some of these big data people that want to leverage this technology. And if you look at the comparison here, so in this scenario specifically, it would only cost somebody $3,800 a month versus, Ethereum, which, I mean, come on, like who's even going to do that, right?
No one.
50, yeah, nobody is going to spend $50 million a month, right? I mean, that's ridiculous. And then even comparing some other networks that are saying that they're super cheap, right? Hedera, I love them, but even Constellation is cheaper than Hedera. And then obviously Solana, Constellation is way cheaper than Solana.
And I'd like to put out that Constellation also is not controlled and manipulated the way that those other chains you just mentioned are. Like it doesn't matter like what name the organization is. It could be some foreign government or a group of VCs, but like go and look at the associations. It's just, it's very clear that Constellation is on a different trajectory in terms of their associations. And I believe that they have intentionally done that because they didn't want to be involved in the riffraff associated with some of those other things.
Yeah. And I don't know if there's anything that you would like to maybe share with us that you could kind of like walk us through, so it's maybe like visually, like people can get a better understanding.
I've been trying to connect my StreamYard and it is not working anymore. It won't let me reflect my screen. So we can just keep going. I will continue trying. It just says something went wrong. I don't know what's happening. So apologies, everyone. I'm trying. It was working right before we started this, so I don't.
Yeah.
I will keep trying.
Maybe while I'm looking at that, maybe I'll send you another invite. Maybe.
Trying right now. It's most likely connection with my computer.
Yeah. Here, I'll send you another link. Maybe. We'll try. Yeah, because he actually has some stuff that he was wanting to share with us, which would be pretty cool. So while he works that out, I'm gonna just mention to everybody. So if there's anybody,
can you see this
watching? Oh yeah, I was gonna say that the SDK is actually available for anybody to start building locally. It's live right now. I will add this to the stage. Okay, so like walk us through what we're looking at here.
Okay, so this is a slight sneak peek. Okay, I don't want anybody else hitting me up saying, give me more. This is what you get. This is what y'all get. This is going to be the breakdown of the site. Obviously, like we have a landing page. Everybody comes in, they log in. You have to create an account, create your Stargazer, two-factor authentication, KYC, right? This is one of the modules that we have. I'll walk you through our navigation bar, and you'll be able to see a little bit about what we got going on. So up at the top, that's kind of just the easy navigation. There will be drop downs that are associated as we introduce more modules. So let's say for enterprise, our modules will all be located there. Drop down, or you can just click, right? We'll have our exchange. Marketplace is looking amazing. Okay. And this specifically is our analytics page. The reason that I like this so much is essentially over here on your account, you can go and you can log in, and not just like, oh yeah, you log in on the site. No, that's not what I mean. You can log into your Fidelity, your Merrill, your Bank of America, your Wells Fargo, your TD Ameritrade, your Schwab. Doesn't matter. And whenever you actually get to sit down and log into all your stuff, we aggregate that data, and then we can tell you the metrics associated across everything.
Wait, hold on. Wait, sorry. I just to clarify what you just said, and just to make sure that I wasn't misunderstanding. So you're saying if like I have a Fidelity retirement thing.
Yeah.
So you're saying that I can log in with my Fidelity account on Intrana?
Yeah, and it'll display everything that you have, and then our tokenization engine, because they're using ISO now, will allow you, if you would like, to send an asset once you've logged in from Fidelity to the platform, and it'll tokenize it and allow you to self-custody it.
Okay. So
across any brokerage, any bank, doesn't matter.
any bank,
Any insurance company, any brokerage, you're going to be able to log in and come and actually access our site, and not just access, but interact with the assets. And let's say there's a tokenized asset somebody's holding in a decentralized manner. Well, we have all the metadata that these brokerages and all of the reporting requirements they're going to need. So if you buy from somebody that's self-custodying, we can send it directly to your assigned brokerage. So in a way, you also get to elect the custody options that you want. Well, we'll have some partners, we'll have our own solutions, but if you want to work with another brokerage, fine. Just use our interface. We just allow people the access to the technology. You can still work with the same businesses that you want. And so, I mean, we have some of these. You'll be able to actually go and look at your assets, essentially just an aggregation of all the assets that you see. We'll give you the base return on investments, base NAV, portfolio performance, value at risk, the Sharpe ratios that you want. We can acid test all of your things. We're going to have different suitability requirements once we have our advisory licenses. People will be able to come in and actually talk about,
So my mind is a little blown right now that I'll be able to log in with my like Wells. So I've banked with Wells Fargo ever since I was a kid. So I've had the same bank account for longer than maybe most of these viewers are watching that have been alive. I mean, yeah, my mind is kind of blown right now. So like how specifically is that going to work, especially considering that we're hearing in the news like a lot of these traditional financial institutions don't necessarily, they're kind of hesitant of blockchain.
They're full of shit. they're lying out there, like they are lying. Okay, that's all I gotta say. They go on the news and they're like, "Oh, blockchain is bad," and meanwhile they're spending $100 billion collectively making their own chains, trying to command the technology, trying to be the ones that do what Intrana has done. And through it, like they lie through one side of it, and then the other, they're saying, "Get on this." And the reason that I can say that so definitively, right, is that they all already adopted ISO 222. They were forced to. That is a messaging standard that was made by the quant team. Well, it was an IETF product, right? But the quant team, they led that group. And that is the messaging standard with that quantum computing resistant framework built into it. It's not automatically attached, but you can put it in. So essentially the way that it works is the tokenization engine that I made for the NDF has an ISO 222 formatter. So regardless of what the asset is, when it hits that engine, it can format that to an ISO 222 type. And when it does that, we can then send it between any institution, and they have to respect it because of the way that the data is created. They know that it is legitimate because they have the actual auditable trail due to blockchain, right? And so from that way, them saying they don't like blockchain, it's just them not necessarily wanting to create a flag that might elicit certain types of behavior. Because back when they were speaking about .com bubbles and things, they learned for investor protection, it's important for them to not speak about the things that they think are going to change the world until they have them ready and they're changing the world. Because they don't want to incentivize or encourage or affect any type of consumer behavior or investor behavior, because they could be hit with a lot of fines, right? But they're definitely not telling the truth. They're just kind of lying out of necessity.
Yeah, and you have people like Franklin Templeton. They've been all over the media circuit recently. Saying that they've been using blockchain technology, and they're super bullish about it. And yeah, I mean, if you sort of dig through and peel back the layers of the onion, you can see that a lot of these big institutions have been testing it in the background. The other thing that I like that you pointed out is, highlighting that ISO is a standard. And it's always been kind of funny to me on X, especially with the crypto crowd. It seems like with ISO respectively, people are only, well, I shouldn't say only, but the majority of the stuff that I see posted about it is just XRP. And I'm like, dude, I don't really think you understand what a messaging standard is, because there's going to be multiple players involved that are going to be utilizing this stuff. And if you really want to get into the nitty gritty, like who's actually in bed with who, you look at Constellation Network. I mean, the president of ISO Labs is an advisor. You've got you've got probably more federal involvement on Constellation Network than I think any publicly traded blockchain infrastructure than anybody. You have other networks like Simba Chain that are definitely super involved in the federal landscape.
They're rather mysterious. I'll put that out there. Simba Chain, they're kind of like not similar to us, but they provide some solutions similar to some of the solutions we provide. Agnosticism stuff, but they have many contracts. They're very good at working.
Many contracts. And then you have, I think CGI Federal is also developing, a blockchain, but those guys aren't really publicly traded networks. You even have IBM that has a blockchain application, right? But they're not a publicly traded. The blockchain part isn't publicly traded, but Constellation is, and they are. I know they have received the top 1% of all federal funding with respect to blockchain awards, right? And so, I always just kind of found that kind of hilarious that they're never brought up in the conversation. And the fact that that you guys have developed a standard in the National DigiFoundry is, again, it should be a pretty clear wake-up call for people to pay attention. I mean, Constellation aside, like what you guys are doing and this platform.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, standards. I mean, everybody, not everyone, a lot of folks, especially crypto Twitter X, right? They don't necessarily believe in standardization. Part of the ethos of decentralization kind of led to this mindset of we're all going to be different. We have to be. We can't be the same, and to an extent that's true. But if we want our databases to be able to talk, I mean, we all use Linux. We all use Ubuntu. We all use Rust. We all use pip3. We all use something. We all use something that's the same. We don't have to agree on the exact way to use the tech, but standards are a very important baseline for what the internet became and what it has to be. And if we get too far down the rabbit hole of, oh, well, we're right, or no, we're right, and we entrench in that mindset, and we don't really have any give, then all we do is there's going to be certain chains that silo themselves to the point where they'll never be accessible to anyone else. And I don't think the world is just going to collapse. There's too many good people working really hard to make sure it doesn't. And in that being said, the only other option is all the databases being able to work, not just us relying on one, because that's ultimate control, that's ultimate power. Also, ultimate anonymity is bad. And there's that fine line, right, with morals and ethics, what we do with the technology, how it's used, who we put it in front of in terms of who uses it, but also who controls it. All that has to do with standardization, because at root core, you have a bunch of people that are very antisocial. very, very intelligent, sitting in a room saying, I've been thinking about this for 2 years, you know, like we should talk about it. There's 50 of them, you know, and they come to a consensus about, you know, the best way for certain types of activities to happen. And it might seem menial, but they'll have 5-hour long arguments and discussions that they'll pick up at the next meeting about one word of the way that we describe this, because it completely changes the way that certain actions are treated legally and then also interpreted. And so all these folks that have done the work and created something like that, that wasn't easy. Like, these people don't sleep, you know, they sacrifice family time. It's kind of a blessing. And so standards, yeah, a lot of people hate them. I think the standards are paramount and imperative. And if we don't have them, you know, anarchy and the Wild West kind of run everything. And that's bad.
Yeah, standards are for sure important. I'm gonna add this screen here as we end. I mean, yeah, my mind is still a little blown with that share. I'm gonna have to, yeah, that's like super exciting stuff, that, you know, that your platform is going to work directly with all of these different institutions.
Yeah.
And the interoperability and the collaboration is super important. You know, Constellation has always had this mission, you know, that it's not, you know, this, you know, especially Biggles, right? So he's always sort of mentioned, you know, it's not like a one chain to rule them all. So currently I'm showing the hackathon information, which I hope is going to get lots of participation from other ecosystems.
I'm sure it will. I'm sure.
Yeah, but here's Iron Spider. Iron Spider was rebranded, I guess, from this universal blockchain kit that they built for the government. So, here's Simba Chain. Here's Kinemy. So they have a decentralized storage application. Because storage is going to be key. I learned something, so I'm not a builder myself. So a lot of the different super duper technical stuff on Metagraph building, I'm not exactly the expert on. I learned something new today, that you actually do have some storage capability within your Metagraph. And then here's CGI Federal. And I believe that there's going to be more participants added to this. But, this is just the federal side. Constellation is also part of the DREC Alliance from Hedera. And so you've got Hedera, you've got Ripple, you've got Algorand, and several other people.
And the Digital Chamber.
And the Digital Chamber, yes, which again has tons of people from the traditional financial space. I mean, you have my bank that I was talking about, Wells Fargo, is actually in there. So it's going to be exciting times. And so we're just a couple of days now away from this Metagraph hackathon, where people are going to be coming up with some crazy ideas of how distributed ledger technology can be utilized. I'm really hoping to see tons of participation from other networks, other ecosystems. I've been talking a lot about Dfinity, Internet Computer. I really love what they're doing. I definitely see a lot of synergy. Here's a platform that's built on Dfinity that I've been using a lot. It's OpenChat. And what's cool about this specific thing, and I believe like every application that's on Dfinity, is all on chain. So like
really?
yeah, all of these messages you're seeing, it's all on chain. Everything is stored in a smart contract. Um, you can send people money on here, tokens. You can exchange tokens all within this platform, and it's all 100% on chain, which is pretty crazy. So
That is really neat. And we met a lot of those guys from Definity, the development, and then we had that space where I met like one of their lead devs. I am working on some things to include that ecosystem. Let's say I do like their people. They did just go through transition, right? But there's a lot of valuable technology that is there, and a lot of very good developers and people that are associated with the community that are just good people. And they're definitely a group that I see, because rising tide lift all boats, and I think that the tides are rising, and we're all around each other. We might as well make friends and see how we can all collaborate, because, like you said, like that's a pretty cool tool that boom, attach Intrana to it as chain agnostic. Everybody has activity, right?
Yep. Well, we're coming up in the top of the hour. My mind is still blown a little bit. But this, like I said earlier in the beginning, this is all going to be reviewable on X, and on it's also simulcast to YouTube. So please, everybody, subscribe and leave some comments. And thanks for watching. And Court, again, thank you for your time, and hope everybody has a good weekend.
Thank you, Dagnum. Have a good one, everybody.
All right. See you.